The following is a Comfortably Zoned Radio Network production.
Welcome back to the Retro Rangers podcast. I'm your host, George Grimm, and I'm here this evening with my two AARP line mates, Marc Weissman and Rich Isaak, and we are going to talk about the upcoming Rangers season, good and bad. Gentlemen, thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having us.
Great to be here.
Okay, so guys, what can we expect this year? Don't all jump in at once.
You can go, Rich, if you'd like. That's fine.
Well, I think there's going to be a learning curve based on what we've seen so far in preseason. I think that the system that Laviolette has them playing is a lot more complex than anything these guys have played in under Quinn or Gallant in the past seasons. I mean, there are a few guys who have probably played something similar to this, who've come in from other teams, but this looks like a lot of them are having a steep learning curve.
Yep, and also the conditioning. I think the conditioning is a factor. I mean, even if he was doing a similar system to last year, from what I see and hear and watch, is the pace of the practices, everything is just a lot more demanding, and these guys, it might be a shock to their system, not really ready for it. So, especially the veterans who are kind of used to a certain way, maybe.
Right. Yeah, I think Laviolette's much more hands-on than Gallant was, and putting them through the paces. So,
yeah, I think Laviolette has a lot more in common with John Tortorella than he does Gerard Gallant in terms of the way he coaches.
Okay.
Well, I guess that's a good thing.
Yeah. It's funny because when that clip went around with Laviolette, in the locker room with at 24/7 from way back, I thought of Tortorella because I felt like Laviolette, was definitely in their faces, but I felt like he wasn't sort of going off to the extent that Torts tends to do, but he was, very vocal, very like I said, in your face, just really emotional, and calling guys out. I think he even mentioned, I forget who it was, it was a veteran, like, what do you think you're doing out there? That kind of thing. So nobody's immune from criticism, it sounds like. Although I will say, I get the impression that, like Gallant, I don't think Laviolette is necessarily going to throw players under the bus publicly. I just get that sense. I don't feel like he's going to do that. But right. I think it's like all bets are off in the room, as far as, what he says and who he, how he coaches and things like that.
Well, let me ask you a question. Based on watching the video of last night's post-game presser, I got the impression he's lost a little patience with some of his players.
Oh, yeah.
He wasn't quite as diplomatic.
Oh, absolutely. Oh, I think I did. Yeah, absolutely. And I think he, you can go back and forth. You could say, well, it's preseason. What's the big deal? But I mean, he's consistent, right? Because when he got hired, he said, look, it needs to start in training camp. It needs to go through. And I'm sure most coaches say that.
Yep.
But the thing is, if he's getting upset and he's getting impatient now, to me, that's like, being consistent and doing as you said. It's like.
Oh, I'm not suggesting it's a bad thing, Mark.
Right. So I like it. I think
Go ahead.
No, you go ahead. It's fine.
No, I just think that I got the impression that some of the mistakes that were made in last night's game were things they've gone over. They're things that have happened in previous games, and he thinks they're, or thought they were, addressed. And they're clearly not there yet.
Right, exactly. And just because he said that doesn't, it's sort of like you get, if you get on the very first test you take in a new class, you get a B, and it says, look, you need to really work on this, and we've been doing this for a month. Yeah, okay, but it's a month in, and you still have 3 more months left of the marking period or whatever.
Absolutely.
I think the difference, what's going to be interesting is whatever he said last night, if he's still saying the same thing a month from now, or 2 months from now, well, that's different. Do you know what I mean? So I think he's sort of establishing what the bar is for what he expects and saying, look, this is what I expected. We worked on, like he was being very factual. Look, we worked on this and we're not doing it. Not, you guys stink. No, here's the fact. We did work on this. There's no reason you shouldn't have been able to do it, but you weren't. Okay, but a coach's job is to make sure, mistakes don't get repeated and things like that, right?
Absolutely. I'm not suggesting otherwise.
Right. Okay. Okay.
Let's also talk about some of the players. Do you think Jonathan Quick is going to last as the Rangers' backup goalie?
I'm not. I don't know if he can be counted on, really. I'll admit, the first game, was pretty rough for him because he let in some goals that an NHL caliber goalie should stop most of the time. Right. Yes, he's gotten better. Yes, he made some great saves in that game against New Jersey. Mm-hmm. But, he worries me a bit.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what they're you just don't know. I mean, came in with a certain level of expectation, knowing he's not the starter, thankfully. And we knew he was going to be the backup, but that doesn't mean that they can afford to lose those games, whatever, if he plays 20 games this year. And I guess the only other thing that people are bringing up, including myself, was Halak's start last year wasn't exactly stellar either.
No, but it was the record that wasn't stellar. Right. I don't know that Halak was giving up many weak goals during that run.
Excellent point. Exactly. I agree with you. I agree with you. Yeah, that's right.
My worry is that he looks more like Marty Biron in his last year with the Rangers.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Than he does anything close to what he used to look like.
Yeah.
And here's the thing, when Marty Biron just clearly couldn't cut it anymore, or they felt he couldn't cut it, they had a young guy in the AHL who'd been in the AHL for 4 or 5 years in Cam Talbot.
Right.
What they have in the AHL right now is Louis Domingue. He's the one with some NHL experience. Mm-hmm. And 21-year-old Dylan Garand. And I'm not sure Louis Domingue is the answer, but it would be unfair to Dylan Garand to shove him into that role. Garand needs playing time.
Mm-hmm.
Correct.
He's 21 years old.
Yeah. Quick, he's 38 years old, and this is really the first time he's been a backup. And I don't really know if he has the mindset to be a backup, to be able to sit for long stretches at a time, and then have to be thrown into a game here and there, and be able to turn it on and play well. I'm not sure if he can do that.
Yeah.
Some guys could do it. Cam Talbot could do it. Glenn Healy could do it, but I'm not sure this guy can do it.
And it may not. I agree with you about the mindset, George. But it may not only be the mindset. Like his style of play is kind of scrambly, kind of like, if your muscles aren't moving very often, and then you have to suddenly act the way he does in net. That's sort of you know what I mean. That's like an adjustment, but you have no time to adjust because it's game time. So.
Absolutely.
I could see both. I could see it mentally being an issue, especially considering how he was the starter for seemed like many years, and now go from that, and then just being able to adjust his physical style to being a backup. That may or may not be even possible. I don't know.
Well, again, he's a scrambler. Yeah,
right.
He always has been.
Right.
And you know, there have been other very successful goalies in the NHL who were scramblers.
Mm-hmm.
You know, a guy who came into the league at an older age, Tim Thomas.
Mm-hmm.
He was a scrambler, but you know, when he played for the Bruins, they had a set of defensemen that he made that first stop, and they got on the puck.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It remains to be seen whether the Rangers D is capable of playing that solidly in front of him.
Yeah.
Right. But to your point earlier, like some of those goals weren't really on the D, at least early on. You know, they were definitely on him. I mean, there was no question.
Right.
I thought, and then the second game he actually started off really well. So I was like, oh, okay, seems like, and then it just maybe then it was a combination of we were still rusty and he was still rusty, and that ended up, you know, same number of goals. So.
Well, I don't think there's any question he's going to start out as the backup. That was the plan, and they're going to give him a shot.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So, okay, what about Lafreniere? Is he? Is this his last chance with the Rangers?
Well,
I don't know, honestly.
I don't know how to answer that. I think that I don't know that he's looked very good this preseason. They're certainly going to give him every opportunity to adjust to the new system, to playing right wing. But sooner or later, something is going to have to give.
Right. Now, yesterday in the Post, I think it was Larry Brooks wrote that they should just give him the job, give him the right wing job.
Right.
And it's a pressure with him, you know. Maybe
and I think that's the plan, George.
But I'm not. I'm not really sure. No, you have to earn things, and I'm not sure he's earning it. So.
Well, there's two ways to earn it. There's earning it like working your way up. Like Hedl started at one point, was on the fourth line, you know, several years ago, and got, you know, moved up, earned his way up. And the other way, the way Lafreniere could earn it is they put him in the right wing spot, and he shows management and the coaching staff that he deserves to be in that spot. Right? I mean, it's sort of like if you're, you know, if you're a star student or something like that, and you get put in this sort of like accelerated class, it's just one of those, like, do you belong here? Prove to us that you belong here, as opposed to whatever you did in the past is immaterial, and just do what you have to do. But I think the other thing about Lafreniere is, I feel like because of when he was picked, because of him being such a high pick, it's like the pressure is not only on him but on management, on the Rangers, to be like, how is it going to look if we take a first overall pick and put him on the third line, or make him a third line player? Because personally, you want to talk about feeling comfortable, I would rather him play third line left wing than first or second line right wing. I really do. If that's only because of the way he played in preseason. If he looked sharp in preseason, like, okay, I'd be like, oh yeah, okay, so there's something there. But if he's still kind of trying to find his way around out there, put him on, then to change not only the caliber of players he's playing with, but also the side that he's playing on. It's like you're changing too many things, I think. I think you have to get his game back, left wing, and then, you know, get his confidence up, you know, whatever that takes, and that's what I would do. But that doesn't necessarily mean that putting him at right wing with better players won't help either. I don't know. I'm just, of the two, that's the one I would pick.
I mean, if Hedl is healthy, and it's beginning to look like he'll be healthy enough to play next week against Buffalo, you know, all the beat writers are saying, to them it looks like he's going to be wind up on the right wing with Hedl and Panarin. Right. Because they want to give that a thorough look. So unfortunately, Hedl got hurt during preseason, so they couldn't really do that, but here we are.
Yeah, exactly.
And you know, you see some of the online comments about Lafreniere, that he's a bust, he's this, he's that. I don't think he's a bust. He's not a bum. And everybody tends to forget They're saying, oh, it's the Rangers drafting history again. But is it? This guy was the consensus number one overall pick,
Exactly.
And the only guy who was remotely possible, they said, well, if you wanted to go a different direction, they said, well, then you'd pick Quentin Byfield if you needed a center. Byfield hasn't exactly lit it up for L.A.
No.
He was picked number 2. The guy who stood out, of course, is Tim Stützle.
Yeah.
But then again, Stützle had played pro in Germany before coming to North America and played on a very bad Ottawa team in the first year and got tons of minutes. Just tons of minutes. Was allowed to fail, as it were. Go out there, learn as you go. We'll stand behind you.
Good point. Yeah.
You can't say that for Lafreniere or Kakko, for that matter.
No.
Right.
Well, those are good points. I hope he's able to pull it together, because you hate to see.
I do too.
Talent wasted. Now,
I feel like he has the right coaching staff. I think if one thing I will say is that if it doesn't work out with Laviolette and his staff and Pekka and these other guys, then I think you really then you can kind of say, you know what, maybe we've got issues with the player themselves. You know what I mean? It's like, I mean, I feel like I know some of the reputation Laviolette has is not playing young players. I don't know. I wouldn't get that feeling. If I didn't hear that, I wouldn't think that's the case. He doesn't seem like that. But
I would suggest that when he interviewed, he was told, we've got some young players and you're going to need to play them. Are you willing to do that? Right. And I think that's why Dan Muse was brought in as one of his assistants, even though Muse has been an assistant with him before. Muse was with the National Development Program the past few years. So he's used to working with young players. So I have to think that's part of the mix here.
Yeah, and to your point, George, about earning it, I remember him saying, when I think Molly was the one who asked at the first press conference, what are you going to do with these players? And he said, we're going to give them every opportunity to succeed, and that they're we're just like, I guess to the point earlier, we're not going to just blindly let them play. They still have to earn their keep. Right. It's like, yes, they're young players, and so I don't know. I guess my original point, I just think that in some sense, I have more confidence in Laviolette's staff of getting whatever we can out of Lafreniere than the previous ones. That's all I'm saying. Really.
Yeah, I can understand that. All right, how about Will Cooley? Where's he going to play?
With the Rangers.
I think he's going to start third line left wing.
Yeah, I think you're right.
The line he played on last night with Trocheck and Wheeler, they played very well.
Yeah,
I saw something this afternoon. I think they outchanced whoever they played against for Boston 7-0.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, he looks good. I mean, he looks physical. He looks like he has, he scored a goal. I think just the one goal, right? Or did he get another one? I forget.
He had 2.
He did have 2
during the preseason.
So yeah, I mean, very promising.
And he wants to be on the team. Him and Osman really made it known that they wanted the spots on the team. Lafreniere didn't really show that, but Cooley went. He actually made people think that he wanted to be there. He deserved to be there.
Yep, and I think the thing is, there's a big difference, I think, between Cooley and Othman as far as what their skill sets are and where they can go. I mean, if Othman, I think we talked about this at our last podcast. If Othman, for whatever reason, they felt he could make the team, he pretty much has to be in the top 6 to get the most out of him. Whereas Cooley, if he goes to, even if he plays on the fourth line for a little bit, I mean, I don't think that's going to be out of his, he's a physical player. He's got that aspect to him. But I think he's more talented, than that. So he'll be up higher. But so if you had to, you could, put him in that lower six. But Othman, if he's not going to play in the top six consistently, for sure, you're absolutely positive every game, then sending him to the Wolfpack was was the right decision. Which really was
absolutely. Sending Othman down right now is the right move because he's going to get top six playing time, and that's what he needs right now, playing pro hockey and getting lots of minutes. It's exactly what Cooley needed last year.
Right.
And if you saw how Cooley's season progressed last year, he started out slowly and really built on that. And after the new year really took off, I mean, the guy had 25 goals last year. And
I was going to ask you, how many games did he play? Did he play the full season with Wolfpack?
60, 62, something like that.
Okay. Yeah, basically.
Okay.
Yeah. And the other thing we have to remember, while Othman isn't a little guy, Cooley's much bigger. Cooley's 6'3".
Right.
220.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. What about Zach Jones? Are they going to keep him or trade him? I don't really know if they have a place for him now. I mean, Matt Robinson seems to have jumped over him on the depth chart, and Laviolette likes the guy he brought in from Washington, Eric Gustafson, and I'm not sure. Do we still have Ben Harper?
Well, he got
sent down today.
No. He
went on waivers today.
On waivers today, yeah.
Okay, so we might.
He went on waivers today, so he can be sent down.
Okay.
I think Jones is going to start the season as the 7th D.
Yep.
He actually looked very good last night playing the right side.
Okay.
And, if one of the right side defensemen get hurt, that's an advantage for him that he can come in and play the right side effectively.
Yep, exactly.
Not a big guy, that's the knock on him, like Fox. But if he can learn some things from Fox about positioning, etc., it won't hurt him. And listen, just like Lundqvist last year, right? If they find a trading partner who's willing to give them what they're looking for, I could see them trading Zach Jones.
Yeah. Well, he was a third-round pick, so I guess they would be looking for a third-round pick back, I guess.
Or better.
Or better, exactly. What I was thinking, yeah.
Yeah, they really can't pick on a player because then they have to pay him, then that would affect the salary cap. So they really...
they'll be looking for a pick.
Yeah.
But I think to the point of if somebody gets injured and we trade Jones, like who's next? We can't just trade him and not have a backup plan on D. I mean, Ryan Lindgren, as we know, is just absolutely huge to this defense, to Fox, but he plays a very high risk, high potential for injury game. And if somebody like him goes out, I'm not saying whoever they get is going to be, anywhere near what Lindgren is, but somebody that you can put in on the third pair and then move the third pair like Schneider up to the second or whatever. You can monkey around with things if somebody gets hurt.
Yep. But I think they would be counting on somebody like Hollowell, who didn't look that bad in the preseason game he got into.
Okay.
I mean, they signed him in the off season exactly for this reason,
Right. That's true.
Spare guy, yeah. All right. So, any idea where do you think the Rangers might finish this year? I'm really not optimistic at all. So you can help me, get my hopes up if you want. But
I'm kind of like you, George. I think if they finish third again, it would be considered a very successful season.
Yeah.
I think the East in general, but the Metro in particular, is going to be a very tough division.
Yeah.
Everybody got better. We just got older and slower.
Yeah, well, Pittsburgh loaded up for one last hurrah.
Right.
Right? Yeah. You have to imagine Washington will be healthier than they were last year. They can't be as banged up as last year. Backstrom's going to start the season completely healthy. And in the Atlantic, I mean, no question, Buffalo is going to give a lot of teams a lot of problems.
Mm-hmm.
And Detroit is going to be better too.
Yeah.
Getting in will not be as easy. That's what I'll say.
No.
I think they can do it, but
I agree with you about the probably finishing in third. Maybe second place. But as soon as I think that, the next thing I think of, third place, which would usually equate to maybe making it to the second round, unless you get on it, So now we're back to next year, and all of the guys that we've been counting on for the last 5 or 6 years are all another year older. And I'm not talking about the guys we just acquired, obviously. I'm talking about Mika, Fred, and, not Fox, obviously. But, just these guys are just – it's just tough. It's like you have to – I feel like we had this opportunity to try to build towards a consistent contender, consistent championship. And now it's like, I agree with you, this year with a new coach and everything else, from this year's standpoint, if we finish third or even second, that's going to be a pretty big accomplishment in the in the micro analysis of it all. But then you look, but what have we done? Then where are we to get to the championship level? If it's 2-3 years away, well then, what's this team going to look like in that situation?
And I'll tell you what, while Panarin has started to play a little better, he's got me a little worried. He's pretty much stayed on the outside, hasn't tried coming inside, and he didn't start shooting last night until late in the game. He's still crossing the blue line, checking up, waiting for somebody else to come late.
Right.
And
I would say give the coaching staff a little bit more time to get through to him for that, I would say.
Sure. And don't get me wrong, Gretzky was notorious for crossing the blue line, coming down the wing, and then doing a button hook. It's just that he usually got down to the face-off circle before he did that. Where last night, the play I'm thinking of, Panarin got in just below, past the blue line, checked up, had happened a couple times, and then he, was looking for the cross-seam pass. Right. And if you're always making that play, the opposition scouted that out already.
Yeah.
They're going to be waiting for it. Yep.
And speaking of waiting for it, it's even more apparent on the power play. I mean, right, it was like picked up right where we left off. Just no shots of for a long time. And it's one thing to try a cross ice pass and have it get picked off, but like once it gets picked off once, you would think, at least in that shift, you would learn, that's not working.
Don't do it again.
But they're like, same thing, trying to get a different result. And it's like, how many times do these guys have to learn that it doesn't have to be a perfect shot? It doesn't have to be just throw it at the net, and I feel like they're like, it's a power play. They feel like, well, that's not what you do on a power play, but that's sometimes you have to.
For worse yet, Mark, think about this. Get it on net, and you got a big horse like Kreider in front.
Right.
You can either tip it or pick up the garbage, with the putback. A la Tim Kerr,
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Anytime they're not shooting, I can always hear my father in my ear saying, "Shoot the puck for Christ's sake!"
I tweeted that. I forget which power play it was. I said, "Well, there's my why don't you shoot?" Yell in the living room for the first time. I was like, "Man, that didn't take long."
I saw that.
Oh my God! I was like, "Oh my God!" And I'm just trying to watch. It's preseason for fans too, and I'm just trying to be like, pace myself, but it's just like you can feel it in your gut. It's like, man.
You were channeling your inner Bill Chadwick.
Yes, exactly.
Shoot the puck, Barry.
I know. Oh man.
All right, now I hate to ask this, but I kind of have to. What about the 5'10", 177-pound, 34-year-old gorilla in the room named Patrick Kane? Is he? Is that still a possibility? Do you think?
I think they have to lose somebody from the roster to be able to afford him, even if they pick him up halfway through the season. The rumor mill has him going everywhere else but New York.
Good.
And don't be surprised if he'd land in Buffalo.
Good.
If Buffalo,
I don't want him.
I'm with you, George. He's a great talent and healthy. I'm sure he's still, but I just feel like that's not what this team needs. I just feel like if there's especially if they have limited funds, So.
Agreed.
It isn't like the 86 Mets, who are maybe one player away, and they could get Gary Carter or Keith Hernandez. The Rangers are not close to anything, so this is just not the thing to do,
So let me ask you guys a question. Speaking of Mr. Kane, it goes back to last season. Do you think that Drury's hand was forced from above?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yes.
I do too.
Yeah, for sure. And if he comes back, it's the same thing. If he comes back, the only reason he's coming back is because they told Drury, you need to get this guy back. Look at what we did. We mixed around the lineup. We played 11-5 or whatever it was. It was like, it was insane. I've never seen so many machinations to get a player that really wasn't, we knew was hurt. It wasn't even like we're bringing somebody in that was just, there was just so many question marks. And yet we were, creating this totally different organization for him.
Well, my question is, how the hell did he pass their physical?
Yeah, well, yeah. Maybe that explains a lot of the changes that were made, So.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the Ranger trainer who was fired, I can't think of his name right now.
Jim Ramsey.
Ramsey.
Yeah, I think it's got something to do with Patrick Kane. I think he might have said something to somebody he wasn't supposed to talk to, and it got back to people upstairs, and they fired him. Maybe he knew that Kane wasn't in the greatest shape, and he told somebody, he told one of the beat writers or something, and he was gone. So
yeah, that would make sense. I think so.
So I have another question.
Everything out there is very closed. People don't speak until they get the okay, So.
What were you going to say, Rich?
So on a different subject, how do you think Braden Schneider has done so far with the new system?
I think he's been okay. I mean, I haven't really noticed him, which you could look at as a plus. Or from a it's not like he's done anything glaringly like, oh man, I'm concerned, but he hasn't really done anything that, honestly, that's kind of been his career to me. He's had some really nice goals, but like overall, he does his job, and you don't really, I don't think you need to put him in the spotlight or those kinds of things. I feel like that he knows his role, and for now, and he's doing it. That's how I look at it.
Yep. I think in the first game he struggled a little bit, but he, starting to adapt.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, he's pretty young too. He's what? 20.
Right.
22.
Yeah.
And he didn't play. Did he play for the Wolfpack at all, or did he come right? I'm trying to remember how that worked with him.
No, he spent half a season in the Wolfpack with the Wolfpack, and they brought him up, if I recall, due to an injury or something, to play on the right side on the third pair, and he played very well right from the get-go.
Yeah, I remember that. I definitely remember that.
And ever since he joined the team, they've basically been looking for a defense partner for him. And I think Gustafson could be the guy, because Gustafson is the guy who wants to move the puck and can. That's his strength. And then Schneider can sit back and be a defensive defenseman.
Right.
Yeah. It still blows me away when you look at the way, the Ranger defense, all the young players that came in, the way Schneider did, and Miller and Fox, and it's like a complete 180 from what happened at the forward position with young players. It's like, why is there such a disconnect between the two positions? I mean, we seem to have no problem developing young D-men, and yet the forwards is just a struggle, seems like.
Well, I think it's because at the time they thought they had enough of forwards, and they were drafting D-men, and then Fox fell into their lap.
Right.
They got Lindgren as part of the trade with Boston.
Right, for
Nash.
Yeah.
And it turns out that Lindgren and Fox have been tied at the hip as defense partners for years.
Mm-hmm.
So they put them on the ice together, and they were like, oh, back to normal.
Right.
And off they went.
I know Lindgren is like the McDonough of that trade. McDonough is a Gomez.
Oh, yeah.
Throw-in thing, and he turns out to be just a huge cog in the whole thing. It's just, you just never know, really.
Yep. But, when you first think of the trade, you say, well, what was Spooner? Okay. But Spooner got you Ryan Strome.
Right.
And while Ryan Strome wasn't the perfect player, he and Panarin meshed very well together.
Yeah, exactly.
And Strome's years in New York got him the bigger contract out west.
Right, exactly.
Anyway.
All right, so you guys were talking about rule changes before we came on the air. You want to expand on that a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, you had sent out, I guess, the link. The NHL has implemented a few. They're almost not really rule changes. A lot of them are rule clarifications, and just nothing earth-shattering. Obviously, none of them have really made the news, or I haven't seen anything about it on social media. But things like clarifying an illegal stick, kind of making sure you can't, you can only. A lot of fans, actually, I don't know if they realize this, you can't throw your stick to a teammate from the bench. You can hand him, you have to actually physically hand them. If you throw a stick, although I believe you can throw a goalie stick. You're actually the goalie you can throw it to, but a forward you can't. I think it's something like that. But, things like that, clarifying that. But then there's the one, I guess, rule, more clarification was there's a provision for challenging a goal. We know there's challenges for offsides, and we know there's challenges for goalie interference, but there's also, this was only put in a couple of years ago, that you can challenge for a missed stoppage of play. So if someone high stick the puck to a teammate and it should have been blown dead and then they score, you can you're challenging that, or a hand pass. But for whatever reason, they're not including the puck into the netting. Let's say the referees and the linesmen missed the fact that it touched the netting and play continued. You can't challenge that, and I don't know why they singled that particular evaluation out, but that's what they were saying.
My guess is, Mark, it's because it's very hard to determine even on video.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Right, because the cameras are all facing generally at the ice surface, and when does the puck tend to hit the netting? Behind the goaltender. And so I think that's a very difficult call to make via video, and I suspect that's why they took it out. And ironically, it was put in because there was a missed stoppage of play in a game in the playoffs a couple years ago, if I recall, where the puck did hit the netting, the referees on the ice or the linesman missed it, and it wound up being scored a goal.
Right.
And that's how the challenge got inserted, but I think it just became too hard to enforce.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Okay.
And then the one other one that they either changed or clarified is if you throw the puck in the zone offside, so it's delayed offside, the arm goes up, and the last player to get out of the zone gets out, actually makes a change. You think about it, there's a lot of arenas where the door for the defensive zone is actually in the zone.
Yeah.
Sorry, for the offensive zone. So
Offensive,
so you're getting off, and as you're getting off, you're actually offside. But they basically they tried to clarify that if both skates are off the ice, sort of onto the bench or in the doorway or whatever, then you're officially out of the play. But I remember seeing a couple plays. People were arguing kind of like too many men on the ice, right? Because too many men, you don't have to be off the bench. You can be within 10 feet. It's very subjective. And yet there was a player getting off the ice who clearly had nothing to do with the play, but there was some stick handling on the other side, and they said, "Oh no, it's offside because that guy's technically still in the zone who's changing." So.
Yep.
Okay, guys. I thank you both for coming on. I want to tell our listeners that we have something to look forward to, and in early November, we're going to have Rick Carpaniello on, and he's going to talk about his book, The Franchise. You guys have been reading it, I know that. How do you like it?
It's phenomenal. It really is.
Yeah.
So,
absolutely. Just a great book.
And speaking of books, I want to get this in there. What's it called? Kenny Albert also has a new book that's coming out, and he's having a book signing in Ridgewood, New Jersey on Monday night at Bookends Bookstore. So if anybody is interested, you can see Kenny there.
Yeah, the book is called, Kenny Albert's book is called The Mike for All Seasons.
Right, exactly.
And since we're talking about books, there's a good possibility that my book about the Frank Boucher era of the Rangers, called The Forgotten Blue Shirts, might be coming out this week. It was loaded. It was loaded onto Amazon this afternoon by a friend of mine. I have to tell you that self-publishing is not for the faint of heart, and I still have some things I have to do with it. But hopefully, someday this week, it'll be out there. So
great,
and we'll see what happens with that. So I thank you guys for coming on, and I thank everyone for listening, and we'll be back soon. All right? Good night, everybody.
The proceeding has been a Comfortably Zoned network production. You are advised to keep your dreams wet, your humor dry, your children and grandchildren out of military recruiting offices and off the laps of clerics who wear dresses. Thank you for listening, everyone. Happy trails.